I was halfway down the corridor, coffee cup warm against my palm, when the young janitor blocked my path with a nervous glance. MS.
Hale.
They shifted your laptop setup to the executive boardroom upstairs.
But
You might want to hold off going in there just yet. His whisper carried weight, eyes flicking toward the frosted glass doors ahead. The hallway felt unnaturally still, the low hum of the building systems suddenly too loud,
like it was holding its breath with me.
I stepped aside into an alcove near the copy machines, pulse steady but alert. 8 minutes ticked by in silence. Then the doors swung open, and there she stood, Madison Whitaker, polished in a crisp navy blazer and heels that clicked with unearned authority. The CPO's daughter, barely 25, carried herself like the room belonged to her family legacy. No hesitation, no deference. She strode to the head of the long oak table, clicked the remote, and the first slide filled the projector screen. My slide. My exact validation engine architecture, down to the subtle gradient shading I'd chosen after 3 late nights tweaking for clarity. Even the faint hashmark watermark in the corner lingered like a fingerprint I hadn't expected anyone to overlook. I stayed hidden, breath shallow, watching as she launched into her delivery. The cadence matched mine perfectly, the deliberate pauses I'd practiced for stakeholder calls, the way I transitioned between risk modules with a soft hand gesture. It wasn't imitation, it was outright theft. My mind raced back to the quiet hours I'd poured into this. For over 4 years at Sentinel Innovations, I'd built the dynamic compliance engine from scratch, a living framework of predictive risk triggers, regulatory alignment checkpoints, and encrypted integrity gates. It wasn't company property. It lived under my custodial license with Vanguard Tech Solutions. Access required my biometric vault key. The only explanation for her having the full deck was unauthorized entry into my session. Likely the flagged 2:17 a.m. ping I'd noticed earlier that morning from an internal IP. She continued, voice smooth, fielding early questions with rehearsed confidence. A chuckle rippled when she dropped one of my signature light remarks about giving the numbers time to breathe. That line had come from a tense client debrief 6 months ago, born from exhaustion and necessity. Hearing it now felt like a violation deeper than code. I didn't interrupt. I didn't storm in. Instead, I slipped my phone from my pocket and opened the secure audit portal. Every token exchange, every IP handshake, every failed sandbox probe was logged there in cold precision. The breach had originated inside headquarters. Badge swiped through the east entrance at that exact hour. Building security footage and access logs would confirm it. Back inside, Madison moved to the core integrity section. Her tone faltered slightly on the failover logic, details too nuanced for someone who'd only skimmed surface material. The CPO, Victor Whitaker, her father, sat at the table's edge, nodding approvingly without a trace of doubt. No one questioned the gaps. She was young, polished, connected. That combination bought blind trust in rooms like this. I felt the slow burn of anger rise. Not hot and explosive, but deep and controlled. This wasn't just copied slides. It was impersonation of a licensed expert under contract. Clause 22D in the MSA was explicit, non-delegable custodial rights. Impersonation triggers immediate remediation. She skipped the embedded compliance hyperlink, unaware it required live vault authentication. The room bought the performance, applauding lightly as she wrapped a segment. But I knew the clock was ticking. My system didn't scream. It documented silently, feeding alerts to legal compliance channels automatically when protected assets were accessed without verification. I sipped my cooling coffee, watching her smile widen, oblivious to the net closing. The fluorescent lights cast long shadows across the hallway, mirroring the unease building in my chest. This moment, This quiet observation marked the shift from personal betrayal to contractual reckoning. The presentation dragged on, each familiar transition another twist in my gut. I recalled the countless weekends refining algorithms, the ethical debates with my team about transparency in risk modeling. All of it poured into code that now paraded as her creation. A senior director asked about rollback thresholds. Madison hesitated, then offered a vague, cascading dependency logic that didn't exist in any standard architecture I designed. No one pressed. The entitlement shield held. I documented another log entry. Heart steady, but resolve hardening. By the time she reached the placeholder humor slide, pause for coffee, then drop the hammer, the irony hit hardest. That rhythm was mine, calibrated for executive attention spans. She'd taken my voice, my structure, my years of expertise, and wrapped it in her father's influence. But the framework's backbone, proprietary timing logic, fail-safe thresholds, remained locked behind my vault. She had the shell, I held the key. Tension coiled tighter as I waited for the inevitable ping. The storm gathered in silence, and I knew the bungno was coming. The legal team materialized without warning, two attorneys in tailored suits slipping into the boardroom like ghosts. Madison froze mid-sentence. Remote hovering, projector light catching the first sheen of sweat on her forehead. The lead attorney, Reynolds, held up a single printed sheet. Before we continue, one clarification: who initiated the session under Vanessa Hale's credentials this morning? The room went still. Madison blinked, recovering with force poise. I was granted temporary access for continuity. My father cleared it for the briefing. Her voice carried that practiced assurance, but the tremor underneath betrayed her. Reynolds didn't flinch. Temporary access, you say? Logs show the session activated at 2:17 a.m. from an unregistered internal device, pulling protected custodial assets under Vanguard's license. He turned the page deliberately. Are you aware that constitutes a breach of Clause 22D? Silence thickened. I remained outside, watching through the glass. Coffee long forgotten. The second attorney, a woman named Elena, added coolly, MS. Hale operates under custodial vendor terms. Impersonation or unauthorized credential use activates non-delegation protocols. This isn't internal property, it's licensed infrastructure. Whispers spread. Chairs shifted. Victor Whitaker's face drained of color. Eyes fixed on the screen as realization dawned. I hit send on the pre-prepared PDF, timestamped logs. Token activity, hardware traces, failed sandbox attempts, and the highlighted MSA clause. Reynolds glanced at his phone. Expression unchanged. No one here holds authorization to present these materials without MS. Hale's explicit release. Madison's voice cracked on her next defense. It was for the team. We didn't think, Elena cut in. Thinking isn't the standard. The contract is. The breach alert had already triggered system-wide. Within minutes, access to validation modules began freezing. Dashboards grayed out one by one with pending custodial verification banners. Finance teams trying to unlock pre-launch budgets hit immediate errors tied to my license ID. The product Slack channel fell eerily quiet, replaced by frantic private threads. A new channel emerged, framework pivot, but invites bypass me entirely. Too late. The engine wasn't mere slides, it underpinned timelines, funding gates, compliance checkpoints. They'd hijacked the skeleton, and now it was rejecting them. My own devices auto-revoked from the network per protocol. Not punishment, protection. By early afternoon, the entire Nexus Dynamics building hummed with nervous energy. Meetings continued on calendars, but productivity evaporated. Developers stared at locked code pushes. Product leads couldn't update statuses. The CPO's private executive dashboard flashed red. Custodial suspension. Consult primary holder. I pictured Victor blinking at it. Assistant sliding the MSA across his desk like bad news in slow motion. Madison vanished from main channels. No posts. No updates, just absence. The silence spoke volumes. I walked back toward my temporary workspace. Steps measured. Mind replaying the morning's warning from the janitor. Underestimation had always been the quiet enemy, ignored while building, panicked when withdrawn. The framework's quiet tripwires had done their job. Legal remediation was underway, not because I demanded it, but because the contract required it. Tension mounted as notifications piled up. An emergency debrief was scheduled for evening. I didn't attend, contract didn't mandate it, but compliance echo tags fed me real-time logs. The CTO opened with a question hanging over everyone. What exactly happened to our launch backbone? Reynolds answered flatly. Owned by Vanguard under custodial terms. Internal override forbidden. Breach activated 22D. Revoking dependent systems. Victor shifted uncomfortably. She's a consultant. You're saying we don't control our own roadmap. The attorney slid the document across. Precisely. Credentials non-transferable, without written consent. Breach originated from a device tied to your family, without delegation. The CEO leaned in, exhaling heavily. Liability. Elena nodded. Unauthorized impersonation under custodial license. Direct violation. No one spoke Madison's name aloud again. The room chilled further when Reynolds displayed the watermark screenshot. Legal. Non-transferable. Requiring live ping. An archived summary email from Vanguard confirmed everything. Protocols routed exclusively through my vault. No roadmap. No compliance path. No funding release. The bridge burned in one impulsive act. By Wednesday, the platform resembled a digital ghost town. Every sync attempt bounced back. Invalid session. Custodial lock engaged. Developers sat idle before frozen terminals. Product teams couldn't advance statuses. Even routine HR documents tied to release modules failed. The engine had been the spine. Now it was an impenetrable vault. Attempts to clone old archives triggered instant compliance flags. Partial exports from prior weeks met the same rejection. My code recognized the unauthorized fingerprints and refused forgiveness. A company-wide notice appeared. Administrative leave. Madison Whitaker. No further comment. No spin. No wellness reframing, just erasure. Victor waited until late afternoon to email me, a lengthy apology threading between denial and regret. He claimed respect for my expertise. Hoped for reset. No reply came from me. Legal handled it on Vanguard letterhead. Custodial rights remain intact. Reinstatement requires full renegotiation and reacquisition. Attached invoice. $118,000 for breach remediation. Exposure. Disruption. No appeals. The article surfaced Friday without fanfare. Tech firm halts launch amid custodial licensing dispute.
Sparse details.
No names, but enough for Valley Whispers. My watermark peaked from the cropped slide image. Madison deleted her LinkedIn entirely. Victor skipped board messages. Podcast appearances. Empowerment rhetoric quieted against binding documents. I observed from my home office. Unchanged routines contrasting their unraveling. The launch stayed paused. Roadmap locked. Trust fractured deeply. I hadn't shouted or sued publicly. Revocation alone sufficed. The principle held, authority can't be impersonated without consequence. They could wonder about the strategist behind it. I'd already started the next framework. Watermark Boulder. The CEO called personally days later.
Voice weary.
Offered advisory role. Direct board access. No interference. I thanked him. Declined cleanly. Recommended my mentee. rigorous and vetted, under escrow protocols with audits. He accepted the terms without protest. They'd learned. Vanguard issued a board memo mandating custodial validation for all future frameworks, no duplication. Logged access. Breach voids protections. Signed simply, V.
Hail.
Legal teams began overhauling vendor agreements for clarity and accountability. The product eventually launched weeks late. Stripped features. Quiet midnight post. New footer on every page. Built under custodial license, Vanguard Tech Solutions. No internal duplication. A scar. Not warning. Watching the launch stream from home. Dashboard open for verification. Everything validated cleanly. At 40 minutes in, the moderator pressed on the legal hiccup. The CEO paused. Then said measuredly, "Strategy isn't slides, it's ownership. No elaboration needed." I closed the tab. Coffee warm. Sun shifting across the floor. They'd salvaged something, but knew the cost of assumptions. I hadn't raised my voice once. Quiet revocation forced rebuild from remnants. Not spite, principle. You can't steal custodianship and retain benefits. Cut corners around experts. Pretend accident. Had they asked properly? Perhaps collaboration. But taking invited revocation. The building learned. Foundations demand respect. Underestimation ignores builders until absence paralyzes. Entitlement meets contracts. Power balances through accountability.